Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Khalipa, short form my podcast where we dive into something that I'm thinking about this upcoming week. And maybe you have a shot of espresso, maybe you have a pour over, but whatever you got, let's dive right in. Topic of conversation for today's idea of midline stabilization, core strength, maintaining good positions when we're lifting. Now, as you guys all know with these episodes, sometimes they're business, sometimes they're fitness, sometimes they're family. This one is going to be a little bit fitness related, or actually a lot fitness related. And it was inspired by our friends over at Border Patrol. So I was in El Paso and I shared with the team 3 concepts and ideas to think about. And the first one was this idea of packing a big punch, and it was taking a large load, a long distance, and moving it quickly. And so if you missed that episode, make sure you go back a few and you check out the one about packing a punch, because that was the first topic that I spoke about with the Border Patrol on something to think about. The second topic that I spoke with them about, and what I wanted to share with you today, is this idea of midline stabilization. Now, when we think about this, it's a fancy word for core strength. It's a fancy word for maintaining what's called a neutral spine. And a neutral spine, the best way to describe this is that if someone were to walk into your office and you're interviewing them for a job, and from the top of their head to their hips, they were just neutral. They stood tall. You'd be like, okay, that person looks normal. But if that person came in your office and they rounded their spine over, that would be weird. If they overarched their spine and kind of puffed their chest extraordinarily too much, you'd be like, what is going on here? That trunk flexion or that rounding of the spine or that overextension of the spine is not what we're looking for when we're lifting or when we're training. So to layer on from what we were talking about a little bit ago, which large load, a long distance quickly, let's layer the next concept, this idea of core strength, midline stabilization, and neutral spine. And what that really means is that if you look at your spine as if it was a piece of, like, let's just say PVC pipe or pipe of some type, you wouldn't want to have any bend anywhere where the pressure would be on a single vertebrae or a specific area of that spine. You would want any loading to be fully dispersed throughout that entire pipe or entire unit. And so from our hips to our head, anytime we're lifting, whether that's pulling from the ground a deadlift, squatting, or pressing overhead, you want to maintain this neutral position. And the idea would be that you're bracing your belly, right? Which is engaging your core, engaging, your obliques, and also strengthening your spinal erectors because you're working hard to stay neutral and to brace that position. And to begin with, you should be able to move through ranges of motion while maintaining a neutral position from head to hip, where you're not having any round or overextension. You should be able to do this with just your body weight. Let's just say it's in a squat. As you squat down, you should be able to, kind of keep your chest upright, reach a full range of motion, and your low back should not round, neither should your upper back. You should also be able to do this from a deadlift position where you're trying to pull something from the floor. Once you feel comfortable in that neutral spine position, this is a framework and a foundation that we need anytime we're lifting an external load. The only exception I could think about is if you're lifting a stone and you're rounding around that position. Aside from that, we always want to maintain that neutral position. In particular, anytime we're moving through ranges of motion. So if you start at the top of a back squat and you have a bar, and as you're squatting, right, you want to maintain that. Now, if you started your back squat rounded and you stay rounded, that's not ideal, but it's better, in my opinion, from what I've seen, than starting neutral and strong. And then as you're squatting, having that trunk move. Anytime we're under load, you want to maintain that position. If you start to go ahead and bend as you're moving, a lot of pressure has a tendency to isolate that specific area. And that's where we've seen some issues in the past. So start off light, start off with body weight. Make sure you can work through a range of motion while maintaining that neutral position as if you're walking into somebody's office from head to hip. And then over time, start adding external loads. Those could be a barbell, trying to perform a deadlift. Those could be a back squat where you're putting a barbell on your back, or dumbbells. These are foundational movements we should all be able to perform. And we should all be able to perform them with a neutral spine, with good midline stabilization, holding that position. And the way we do that is by strengthening the muscle groups that support that entire unit. And so if you're finding yourself where you're getting low back pain, or perhaps you can't hold positions, start with just your body weight. Start working ranges of motion through a back squat, through a squat, and then add in walks. And as you're walking, maybe add in a little bit of a loaded backpack with a gallon of water in your back. So it teaches you to stay nice and upright. Start strengthening your spine, start strengthening your body until you're capable to start adding in some light to moderate loads. So step number 2 that I was talking about with the guys is going from this idea of large load, long distance quickly and packing a big punch to now transferring that concept into saying, okay, we know that we want to do these movements that move these large load, long distance, like a clean and jerk, like a snatch, like a deadlift and a back squat. But while we do them, we must maintain that neutral spine position, that good core stabilization. Said this way, we're not putting ourselves at risk of an injury position. So that's the topic for today. Very fitness related, but something for everybody to think about the next time you're lifting something off the floor, lifting your kids off the floor. Don't round your back, maintain that nice chest up position, but not so much so that you're overarching your back. And if you're having a tough time doing this, start by doing something even called like a hollow rock, which is a good additional tool, and or starting to lift light loads through ranges of motion that are long, but while doing so with awareness of keeping your belly tight and your back neutral. Keep crushing it. Make sure you check out the other CrossFit Khalipas. They're always different. They're always what's on my mind. But this week, fresh on my mind, this idea of maintaining that good midline stabilization. And we'll start working on the next topic here in the future. Keep crushing it. Talk to you guys soon.